What's going on, everyone? It is the Durf, and today I am bringing you the Prismatic version of the Lodestar build that I came out with not too long ago. This build is going to feature Lodestar exotic trace rifle with, of course, primary ammo, so it's infinite and never ending. This build is going to have all the elements that you like in Prismatic, plus it's going to give you an additional way to absolutely just decimate the battlefield. If you've been looking for a Lodestar build that you can spec into that will also help you bring it to the enemies of the Traveler and help your team succeed all at the same time, as well as being able to make you one of the most powerful Guardians on the field at any given time, this is the build for you. Orbs of Power, 1 minute super, excellent ability regen, and with the addition of the new artifact perks, this build is going to be absolutely bonkers. So if you do find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian out there who is looking for a great Prismatic build to build around Lodestar, send them my way or share this video with them. So without further delay, I am going to get us into it. Let's go. Kick things off with this Lodestar Prismatic Warlock build. We're going to go with the Song of Flame for the Super. There's two main reasons why we're going to use Song of Flame for the Super. Number one, it still is insanely powerful at doing area damage as well as single target damage. The Scorch effects, the Ignite effects, the ability to stun unstoppable champions, turn you radiant to stun barrier champs. There's really nothing to hate with Song of Flame. And oh, by the way, it is a roaming super, so the more damage you generate, which you're going to be generating a lot, the quicker you are going to get this super back. So on top of everything else that we're going to have in this build, you're going to have an amazing super that's going to regenerate in as little as 30 seconds, depending on games that you are playing and the activity that you might find yourself in. But typically you're going to get this super back in about 1 minute to 1 minute and 20 seconds if you play this right. For abilities, we're going to go with the Phoenix Dive and the Burst Glide. Arcane Needle is going to be our melee because we can stack that 3 times. What we're going to be doing with this Arcane Needle is we're going to be using an aspect that I'm going to talk about in a second to generate Jolt, which will generate additional ionic traces, as well as give us a Devour, as well as give us more melee energy back in succession. The grenade of choice is going to be up for debate, but I think no debate here for me personally. Cold Snap Grenade is going to do 2 things for us. Number one, it's going to give us the ability to stop enemies in their tracks in general. If you are by yourself and you start getting overwhelmed, you can throw down your Cold Snap Grenade and slow down the enemies that might be coming out at you. The other reason we're going to go with the Cold Snap Grenade is its ability to intrinsically stun unstoppable champions. We're not going to have a weapon that is intrinsic to stunning unstoppable champions, and we're not really relying on our grenades since we're going to be running so much heavy arc type damage in general, with the exception of our super. So having this grenade on the back, like the back burner, so to speak, like you can pull this out of your pocket on a whim if you get overwhelmed or you get that unstoppable champ that you might or might not have remembered that was going to appear. This Cold Snap Grenade theoretically should be able to stun that unstoppable champ with ease, and also it will go towards its next target once it does hit the unstoppable champ or whatever enemies. But it's just a good break in the action, and that's why I think Cold Snap takes the cake here. The other reason why I don't have another one is, quite honestly, I want to be able to slow down enemies in my face. And occasionally I will throw this towards my allies if I'm running a matchmade activity who might be getting bogged down far enough away from me that I'm not going to be able to immediately get there and help them. So again, it's just going to help everyone in your fire team. The first aspect we're going to go with is Feed the Void, defeating a target with any ability to activate Devour. Your Devour effects are improved, restoring additional health and grenade energy. So again, I'm not worried about the grenade coming back because with Feed the Void active, I'm going to be getting grenade energy by virtually just playing the game and doing whatever I'm doing at the given time. The health aspect is important because the Nether Arena health is at a premium, and of course in this week's GM and probably future week's GMs, health is going to be a necessity to stay alive in virtually all activities. But you could easily swap this out for another aspect if you aren't worried about the additional health and grenade energy. The other one that I would recommend would either be the Hellion for the additional slot or the Weaver's Call. The reason Weaver's Call is nice is because you can use your Phoenix dive into a crowd of enemies and get some quick tick damage. The reason the Hellion is nice is because you can deal solar damage that will eventually ignite targets if it lands on them enough times. But honestly, Feed the Void takes the cake for our first aspect. Lightning Surge is going to be our second aspect. We're going to be using this a lot, which is why we have the Arcane Needle selected for our melee. Our main goal here is to get Bolt Charge as well as Jolt flowing so that we can activate things within our class itself, as well as the artifact, as well as get us amplified as the time goes on. So Lightning Surge, the way it's going to kind of work is you're going to start the encounter, let's just say, off, whether it's a strike or whatever. You're going to start it off by running up to a group of enemies and activating Lightning Surge. What this is going to do is cause targets to jolt. It's going to get you some ability energy. It's going to get you an Orb of Power, which we're going to go over here in the armor. And it's basically going to start the cycle of using your Lodestar on top of everything that you are already going to have going for you. For Fragments, pretty standard setup here, nothing too crazy. Facet of Purpose is going to be a big one here. When we pick up our Orb of Power, we are going to get Restoration. Restoration is going to grant us additional health and shields on top of the Devour effects that we have from our aspects. If we have literally anything else on this list, Bolt Charge, Overshield, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, none of that is going to give us additional health, which means that in a GM, when health is at a premium, in a Nether Arena activity, whether it's expert or just regular, because it is kind of a longer activity, having health be non-existent, non-regenerative, Restoration is going to help you not cure it, but fix it slightly, especially in the Nether where health is very tough to come by. Facet of Balance is going to be our second fragment. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. That is great because we are going to be spamming our melee attacks as well as our Lodestar. And rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. I don't really care about the grenade energy from the Facet of Balance because I'm going to be getting that from Feed the Void. But both of those options are at your fingertips. The melee is what we care about the most. Facet of Sacrifice is next up on our list. While you have an Arc, Solar, or Void buff, ability Final Blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. So this is how we're going to get over the hump of not having a Darkness damage weapon in our arsenal and still getting us into that Transcendence mode. So any ability kill that you get, which is going to be from our Lightning Surge, is going to grant you that bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. And you're virtually always going to have a buff, so you don't really have to worry about that. Next up is going to be Facet of Awakening. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generates an elemental pickup of matching damage type. Take your +10 to resilience and get your Ionic Traces going. Ionic Traces are going to be playing a huge role in this, which I'm going to go over the armor here in a little bit. But basically, the Ionic Trace that you pick up is going to give you ability energy. The more Ionic Traces you get, the more ability energy that you get back. And that's on top of Feed the Void, and that's on top of the Orbs of Power that you're going to be getting normally anyways. Last but not least, Facet of Protection is imperative in this because we are going to be playing pretty aggressive. And while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage, while Transcendent, the effect is increased. When you pop Transcendence, if you didn't know this, your ability refresh rate for your melee is going to be increased. So you are going to be able to spam your Lightning Surge even more frequently than if you just had 3 charges charged up without popping Transcendence. So having the Facet of Protection on here is going to help you immensely. I think it's a 15% damage resistance on top of everything else that you're going to have. And again, if you're getting that restoration from that orb of power, you're getting this on top of the restoration, which is going to help you restore health and shields on top of Feed the Void, which is going to give you your health back. For stats, I recommend speccing into resilience, strength, and discipline in that order. The other two, you want to be at least a 3. With the exception of intellect, I recommend trying to have that around a 4 to a 6, simply because you are not taking advantage of synergy between your main add clear weapon and your super. So everything that you do is going to count a little, just a tick less. You're not going to be able to pair this with armor that's going to synergize with your super regen. And because Arc doesn't have a lot of splash effects with the exception of Lightning Surge, or I guess unless you're running Trinity Ghoul, which we're not, having a little bit of extra bump to that intellect is going to take this super and get it back to you faster. For weapons, if you checked my previous video, these are not going to look any different. I basically copied and pasted these weapons straight from that build. In the kinetic slot, we have the Supremacy. I recommend speccing into Rewind rounds and Kinetic Tremors. In the energy spot, we're going to have Lodestar. Of course, Lodestar has the arc alignment, dealing arc damage from any source alliance's battery coils. So whether that's your Lightning Surge or this weapon itself, or your heavy, which is also going to be arc, when alignment is complete, long press to disengage the safety and enable hip-fired Starlight Beam to apply jolt to any target damage for a short time. This is going to be awesome when it comes to dealing with bosses and majors and beefier enemies in general. You get that jolt flowing, it stuns them, it slows them down. So basically, you get a free jump on, getting rid of the enemies that are in front of you, and all you got to do is long press to get a full beam of jolt active. And because it's primary ammo, you're never going to run out of it. The intrinsic trait, this weapon fires a low intensity arc beam with enhanced stability and accuracy. I prefer to use this as a hip fire first and foremost. I rarely ever use it as its pulse version, which is what happens when you aim down the sights of it. But you can use it however you want, whatever is easiest for you. It's going to all be the same eventually. We're all trying to do the same thing here with this Lodestar. In the heavy slot, I recommend Watchful Eye. Overflow and jolting feedback is probably the best role to have here, since you are going to be running an exotic primary weapon. You're going to be regularly overflowing this magazine. I think it comes out to about 126 rounds that you can pump into your initial magazine. And then from there, you get another 64 on top of that. So almost 200 rounds with just one reload. That's pretty darn good. And because it is a 600 round per minute, you can fire this from a relatively safe distance. You'll get the jolting feedback on here. You'll get the jolt added to it, which I know sounds kind of redundant because we have Lodestar, which we're going to be taking advantage of the artifact. But where this is going to come in even better is when you're firing this weapon at the boss, jolting them as well as having an intrinsic overload perk disrupting them. That's going to be huge, and you're going to be able to see that in higher, not like top tier activities, but higher difficulty, but maybe not like the hardest thing that's available in this game. You're going to see that way more easily than, say, like an expert nether or something along those lines of difficulty. But either way, it still works in any difficulty top to bottom. So take advantage of that if you're thinking about running that GM, or you're thinking about running that expert nether, or you're thinking about running the expert guardian games, which is going on this week as well. For substitutes for the kinetic weapon, if you want to have barrier capabilities but you don't want to use a sniper rifle, you can absolutely use the call. Beacon rounds and Vorpal, you get the bump to the boss damage, and of course beacon rounds give you tracking. The dealer's choice is nice because you get a little bit of extra kickback for your super, and I would recommend just putting up a backup mag. However, it's not going to go as nicely because we have a selected perk on our artifact that's going to benefit kinetic ammunition, just in general, kinetic damage. I also recommend Succession. Reconstruction is nice because you can reload your weapon without you having to actually have it equipped. And Snapshot Sights is also nice because it's basically an instant visual on any enemy. So if you might not be as far away as you should be while using a sniper rifle, you can put something on that has snapshot sights like this. This is just an example. Obviously, I'm not using Succession. That's why it's at 1900. I fully recommend the Supremacy first and foremost. But if you have Succession or you want to know where you can get it, you can run the Onslaught activity in the Vanguard menu, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Once you focus it at Zavala, you can get these within a run or two, so you don't have to waste a lot of time, whereas Supremacy is a craftable weapon, so you got to get a number of patterns before you can, access it. For substitutes for the heavy weapons, the power weapons, the other Watchful Eye, Field Prep, and Jolting Feedback, I really like that one because typically when I'm firing Watchful Eye, I'm hunkered down somewhere firing from around cover as I try to stick with only my special ammo and my primary ammo weapons unless I'm dealing with a boss or a major. But you can also put on Crux Termination. Crux Termination is nice because it can load 2 in the chamber all at once with the bipod, and you don't even have to worry about reloading. You can just put it on your back and go about your business. But you're going to get the most benefit from Watchful Eye, which if you don't have a good roll of that, run a couple of nether activities and try to focus the tome on that as well. Fallen Sunstar is our exotic of choice. Ionic traces you create move faster and grant you additional ability energy. Nearby allies also gain ability energy when you collect an ionic trace. So this benefits not only you getting your abilities back faster, it also benefits your allies. And in higher end activity, when ability energy is coming at a premium, health is at a premium, things like that, having the ability to help out yourself as well as your allies at the same time, because you guys are most likely sticking together as a team, is going to be super helpful. For the mods, I recommend putting on whatever general mod that you need. I recommend a heavy ammo finder, and because we're mainly going to be spamming arc weapons, I recommend double arc siphon if you can fit it. If you cannot fit a double arc siphon, you could also go, with the Kinetic, which is only 2 energy, or if you are able to fit 2 arc siphons but you don't want to, I also recommend running a hands-on, which you don't necessarily need because you already are using a roaming super. But the benefit here is going to be that you gain additional super energy, which means you can spam your super even more. For the gauntlets, whatever general mod that you need, I recommend putting on. I recommend at minimum 2 heavy-handeds. The reason for this is there's only a 5-second cooldown between melee strikes to which you can generate an orb of power. If you can fit it in here, I recommend putting on an arc loader. However, some of you may think that running a 3rd heavy-handed might be appropriate here. And if that is you, that's great. If you're amplified, you're going to get increased reload speed in general anyways. So that's something to consider as well. I'm not always going to be amplified, especially in harder activities. So some of this is kind of based on the activities that I run or that I try to do build testing in or whatever. I want the extra reload speed because I'm going through my abilities in general anyways. I'm also cycling through my weapons. So I'm not 100% reliant on the lightning surge. But honestly, if you put the hands-on mod on your helmet and you put a 3rd heavy-handed mod here on your gauntlets, you can generate some ridiculous super energy insanely quick, thereby not even necessarily relying on your Lodestar even more. But this is a build around Lodestar, so, keep that in mind as well. The goal is to be able to use it to its strengths. For the chest armor, whatever general mod that you want, put on 2 resistance mods, and then because you are running an arc heavy weapon, I recommend putting on an arc reserves mod. If you don't want to run an arc reserves mod, you can always put on a 3rd resistance. Any of these main 3 here are typically what people run, unless you are running in the Pale Heart, then you'll have to be conscious of strand and stasis damage coming at you. For the leg armor, whatever general mod that you need, go ahead and throw that in there. I recommend running Recuperation, Invigoration, and Absolution. The reason I want Invigoration is because I'm not reliant on my grenade, except for maybe champs or the occasional situation where I just need a breather because I'm reloading or whatever. So I'll have the grenade just chilling. Absolution is nice though, because every orb of power that I pick up is going to split my ability energy through all of them. So it doesn't matter what it is. If I'm close to getting it and I pick up that orb of power, Absolution is going to make sure that it gives me a little bit of extra tick back. And then Recuperation, I typically swap this out with either another Absolution because of how I have this set up, or an Innervation. The reason I have Recuperation on here is because I've been running a lot of Nettler activities since the release of Act 2. You know, I'm trying to get other stuff done in there and farm weapons and things like that, you know, which is going to help my videos here with you guys. But Recuperation is nice, especially in higher end activity in general anyways, where health might not be coming back to you as fast as you would like it. Add to that the fact that your super of choice, the orbs that you pick up, is already going to give you restoration. It just adds some extra love on top of it. For the class item, whatever general mod that you want to run is completely fine. Just spec into whatever you need most. I recommend running Font of Restoration. Now, some of you might debate me on this because in the Nether, the Font of Restoration is virtually not going to matter. And because we're not using Weaver's Call in our class setup, we're not even going to be using our class ability for anything other than just the Phoenix Dive in general in the Nether. It's not really going to give us much health, if any, back at all. However, in virtually every other activity, the Font of Restoration is going to give you your class ability back extremely quickly. One orb of power gives you a plus 35 to your recovery stat. So what does that put me at? 71. So I'm going to be a T7 with virtually no effort, just picking up one orb of power. Outreach is next up on the list. Reduce melee cooldown when using your class ability. This is a no-brainer because we're going to be spamming our melee quite often. And then for the few times that you are going to be using your Phoenix Dive here and there, shortly after using it, your next weapon Final Blow, doesn't matter what it is, spawns an orb of power. So you get the juices flowing back, get some ability energy back, including for your class ability when you pick up that orb of power. So it rounds out the build very nicely. For the artifact, it's going to be similar to what I had previously, but we're going to go through it as it stands. Overload machine guns, anti-barrier sniper rifle, and overload trace rifles. If you didn't know, overload applies exhaust. So it doesn't matter what kind of enemy it is, exhausted targets deal reduced outgoing damage. So having two weapons that can exhaust targets is pretty powerful, especially if you don't have to worry about all three champs in the event, in the activity that you're running. I have Beam Medic in the second column, as well as Overclock and Load. The Beam Medic rapid trace rifle final blows heal you and nearby allies. Powerful combatants increase this amount. Yet another way to get some reoccurring healing. And then on top of that, while you're amplified or have bolt charge, you will gain increased handling and reload speed. In the third column, I have Hold the Line. While surrounded, machine guns and glaives gain increased reload speed and stability. Final blows heal you. I'm going to take the bump to health. Dielectric, defeating arc debuff targets grants bolt charge. Boost, rapidly defeating arc debuff targets spawns an orb of power and heals a small portion of health. Heals a small portion of health. I guess that sounds right. I never really sounded it out like that in one of my previous videos. But either way, make sure you activate your Tome of Want so that you can get the boost. This is another orb of power and extra health back. Elemental Siphon is going to be a necessity since we're going to be running a kinetic weapon in our kinetic slot. Rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super. Create an elemental pickup that matches your equipped super. So the elemental pickup for this is going to be Fire Sprites. Because when we use our kinetic weapon to get a couple of kills, it's going to match our super. And since our super is a solar super, a Fire Sprite is going to give us grenade energy back. The boost, elemental pickups grant matching super energy when they are collected. I don't have that currently activated, but if you do, or you do eventually in the future, that's just going to add to this build overall. In the fourth column, I've got Harsh Refraction. Trace rifles do more damage to targets afflicted by elemental debuffs matching their element type. This is going to pair perfectly with Lodestar because when you put Jolt onto a target, when you switch to other firing mode, you're going to deal additional damage to that target at the same time you're rapidly applying Jolt to it. Flashover, when you gain maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified. Lightning bolts deal more damage. This is a no-brainer. Anytime I'm running an arc anything, arc main weapons, and of course the Fallen Sunstar, I want to be able to become amplified as easily as possible in as many ways as possible. Since I'm going to be generating bolt charge from my lightning surge, I am naturally going to be amplified as often as I possibly can, which is going to help you get away from danger or get up close to danger depending on your playstyle. The fifth column is the one that we're going to have a little bit of a debate on. Heavy ordnance regeneration, I think, is a necessity here. Dealing sustained damage to targets with a heavy machine gun or rocket launcher, which again is why I have Crux Termination as a backup option, grants damage resistance and increases grenade and melee regeneration for a short duration. So grenade, melee, regeneration, on top of the Devour effects, on top of Restoration, on top of literally everything else I've talked about that's giving you any ability and or health energy back. Just a nice way to round out your overall setup. This is the one we're going to have some debate on, Defibrillating Blast. Stunning a champion grants maximum stacks of bolt charge, triggers an arc bolt that heals you, and jolts combatants that it damages. If you are not running an activity that's going to see champs, do not put this on. It is pointless. Instead, put on Photonic Flare. Defeating an exhausted or severed target with arc damage releases a blinding burst. This might even be good to put on in place of that in general. If you're not worried about getting stacks of bolt charge, which I'm not really worried about that anyways because I have Lightning Surge, you may opt to take this off and put Photonic Flare on. Photonic Flare, defeating an exhausted, severed target, like I said, releases a blinding burst. Exhausted targets deal reduced outgoing damage. So even if you are seeing a champ and you have a way to already stun that champ, which we went over, your exhausted target is going to deal reduced outgoing damage anyways because you're going to be firing at it with one of two weapons that can disrupt them and exhaust them. So just something to think about. I would recommend Photonic Flare if you're just running general activities because you don't need to worry about, the damage that's coming back as much from this enemy as you normally would. However, it is also important to be able to get bolt charge when you stun that champion. So that's going to be completely up to you how you want to do it. Both are excellent options, but I think the rest of them, I'm not really sure if I would ditch any of the other ones just to be able to have both of them activated at the same time. So that is the prismatic version of the Lodestar build that I just came out with a couple of days ago. Like I said, there's going to be some debate on whether or not you can take this into an endgame activity. Naturally, I'm going to side on the idea that, depending on the type of player out there, if this build works for you, I think you could do some damage with this in endgame activities. You saw in the opening build demonstration video, I really wasn't, there's not an arc surge this week on the Nightfall. And I'm using arc and I'm keeping up. I'm producing a lot of orbs of power, which again is helping my teammates. And I'm putting out decent damage numbers and I'm able to rapidly kill a lot of enemies. Not to mention I'm hard to kill because I'm constantly running all over the battlefield at lightning speed. So even though you are running a solar super, that doesn't matter. That's going to help you deal area damage, clear out a room if you need to, if you guys are having a really tough time with the GM or a harder Nightfall or expert nether or whatever. The restoration is going to be nice. I don't know. I think there's a lot to really like with this build. I know that Lodestar is not in its finished state yet, but what we do have with it and with the artifact, depending on what comes with Lodestar, it may go from being, let's just say, an A+ low S tier weapon to like, look, if you don't have this weapon equipped at all times, you're crazy. But that remains to be seen. if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a guardian out there who's trying to figure out how to put Lodestar into a prismatic build and prefers to run Warlock, send them my way. Actually, I think this is the first time I've ever featured the exotic armor that we're using, but rest assured it does get regular usage. Share this video with them, share this build with them. Don't forget, you guys can connect with me further on my Discord, or you can also get at me in the comments. I will always have a dim link in the video description, so make sure you guys check that out as well. And then of course, let me know how it works for you. I loved the ARC version, the OG version of this build, but honestly, I like the Prismatic version just as much because I can change the super, I can switch some things around. Some of my stats are better on my armor. I can use a different armor type. I don't know, there's a lot to like with both builds, but you can't try one without the other. At least that's my opinion. And because there's so many different variations with the Prismatic build, I think you can truly customize this to how you want. Heck, if you don't want certain things on there and you want to switch it out for something that you use more of, I still think this build can be viable for you in virtually every activity. Even if it's not a surge activity, it's still going to be able to hold up depending on your play style and level of patience to getting used to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load us quickly into... Yeah, I'm going to go in the moon. I'm just going to go through a quick play style, like a play setup, and show you how I run into, different activities, how I start things off, and just kind of go from there. All right, so I just spawned in because I'm going to get rid of this guy first. It is important to note that with Kinetic Tremors Enhanced from a sniper rifle, you only need to hit twice in order to generate the Kinetic Tremors. So that's pretty nice. All right, so you saw there I started this off by grabbing my jolted attack with my melee. I've got my arc energy set up, and now you can see I've got the this target fully exhausted, and that's helping me. There you go. Now obviously that was not going to be every situation. In an actual strike or nightfall or whatever, that target is going to be attacking you. He's not going to be trying to run away from you like he was me. But either way, so I'm going to throw my grenade just to be able to generate some additional dark energy, and I'm going to lay into this guy with my jolting feedback. Heavy machine gun. So that's going to kind of be the play style. Run up to a group of enemies, throw your melee out, and get some of that amplification started. You can seamlessly switch between your special and your Lodestar if you want. Both are going to give you ability energy. Both are going to give you transcendence energy. And the key here is that once you see, there's a fire sprite right there, but I didn't generate that one. But we're going to once you are able to proc transcendence, which again you got to make sure you're using your abilities. It's hard to do that when you only have one of each. To get transcendence that quickly. But once you get transcendent and you get your super going, you're going to be able to cycle between them pretty regularly. And in a longer activity, that's going to be not only extremely helpful, but extremely fun to be able to do that on top of everything else you're going to be able to do. And of course, you can see the jolting feedback is really nice. Even just on, some rinky-dink waves of the moon. But all right, so we've got our super ready. So I'm gonna pop the super and just show you how this is going to go. So I'm using my super to clear everything out. I'm radiant, so if I wanted to switch to my my Kinetic and use that, it's going to pierce barrier champs, or even my Lodestar will pierce barrier champs. Realistically, you can't go wrong with any of it. And you saw we generated a fire sprite there, which gives us our melee back. You can see I've got 3 melee charges. So that's going to pretty much be the play. Not overly complicated. If you've used Lightning Surge in the past, this is theoretically not going to be any different than what you're used to. Just you're going to be able to exhaust targets with your primary ammo trace rifle. Yeah, that still sounds weird to me too, but either way, take advantage of it. You know, the artifact is being very kind to trace rifles, and trace rifles, I can't remember the last time a trace rifle got any sort of substantial love from Destiny. So this is probably long overdue, and I know I'm going to be enjoying it. To do the melee spam, we're going to pop trend. Oh, I can't do it yet. We're going to go to our next target here, and then I will show you how to do the melee spam. So to do the melee spam, you pop your Transcendence. You can throw out your grenade if you want, and just go to town. As you deal damage while you're Transcendent, you're going to be able to not pause the Transcendence meter going down, but you'll be able to slow it down. As you get kills and deal damage while you're Transcendent, what you're going to be able to do is generate Transcendence energy back into the Transcendence meter. So theoretically, if you are in a real busy activity with ads and whatever else, you might be able to have Transcendence extended for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 60 seconds if you're really lucky. And that can be pretty darn awesome to watch. Also, don't forget about your grenade. Use that to your advantage when you're getting bogged down. Use your grenade to slow that champ down. Use your grenade to slow the boss down a little bit, even if it's just for a second. Give yourself a little bit of a breather. So anyways, so that's the video. I want to thank you guys for the good vibes I got on the last one. Hopefully this one, even though it's similar kind of to the build previously, hopefully you guys understood I had to do a prismatic version of the Lodestar build, because quite honestly, when you're looking up how to use this weapon, there are some builds out there with it, but they're not as prevalent as just, you know, elemental specific builds. So I wanted to be able to try to help you guys figure out a way to incorporate it into builds, whether it's prismatic or OG arc, and be able to take advantage of things that, you know, every Guardian loves using when it comes to the Warlock class. So if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian out there who is looking for a build, please share this video with them. A build for Lodestar, at least anyways. But either way, hopefully you guys find a way to make the build work for you. I know that this thing is becoming more useful the longer that I keep this Lodestar in my immediate inventory. And I think once we get the catalyst, we'll be able to make a determination how long this weapon is going to be top tier. Because right now it's already pretty powerful, and I think depending on what the catalyst gives us, it probably will take us even further in terms of power, and that's going to make it even more fun. Not just for Heresy, but even in the future as well. Alright guys, thank you guys for checking out this video. Take care, be safe out there. I'll see you guys next time.